Are the playoffs on or are the playoffs off? It seems a bit like a rinse and repeat situation on the pitch with great results being followed by meh ones. However, Noel Hunt's men are currently unbeaten in 10 and after the draw with Stevenage at the weekend, still within range of the top six. Welcome to episode 412 of the Tilehurst End podcast with myself, Ben Thomas, and of course, Ross Webber.
Yo,
Ross,
yo.
you said some things about me last week.
Mm.
On the pod that I'd like to take some time to respond to
Okay,
with
yeah. Whatever the
some
opposite of St. David's Day was, that was what last week was.
yeah. I'd
Yeah.
I'd I'd, I'd like to just direct some personal abuse at you if that's okay.
Okay, sure. Yeah, let's go.
Okay. You are a piece of discarded loft insulation.
Okay. One. Okay. I actually
Y-
sell
You're
loft insulation, but anyway, carry on.
you're a bottom of the bag French fry.
Oh, sometimes that's the one that's got the most oil on it. So, you know,
Y-
I'll take that.
You're a grieving cod.
A grieving cod. That's interesting. I've never seen a fish grieve. Can a fish feel emotions? Can a
Well,
fish?
they can in this particular abuse section, they can. You
Okay.
are a smashed piece of Christmas
I
trifle.
thought you were gonna like tell me why I'm getting abuse, and you've just decided to come back into the pod and admit. So I came on and said you were knitting or some nonsense, but like you've come on and been
No, I
like,
haven't
yeah,
finished yet. I've
okay,
still
we're not
going.
done. Sorry, listeners.
You asthmatic church mouse.
Right, okay. Well, at least I got a place to live.
You're like an unpainted fence.
An unpainted fence. Well, people are changeable with what kind of color they like.
And finally, this is the worst one of the lot, so brace yourself. You're a broken bathroom floor tile.
Oh, that's an uncomfortable one. That one
Yeah,
I don't
exactly.
like. Oh
Exactly.
yeah. There's no good
Wasn't
way
me.
around that. That's just
I was busy.
a constant and slight annoyance, a broken bathroom tile. That's,
Sheesh.
yeah.
That's what
Why
that
am I
is.
getting abused? Can you reveal this now,
Just because
please?
you're rude, and then I got loads of nonsense on X for
Oh, you
delaying the
did
pod.
you? Good.
Just it's constant, absolutely constant.
Perfect.
To be fair, actually, I did quite enjoy the pod last week. It was quite nice to listen because I don't listen to it when I'm on it. I sometimes dip in for 5 minutes just to check the sound quality, but I actually really enjoyed listening to you and Ryan just talk about stuff. It's quite nice.
There was good chat. It was a good one. There was a lot of fun and stuff going on at the moment with Reading. We haven't lost in 10 now, so I mean there's somehow still stuff
It's a
to
little bit
complain about.
deceiving though, isn't it? Which we'll talk about.
Yeah, but yeah. So no, it was a good one, but I'm glad you're back, even though you were knitting or whatever nonsense. He literally just got can't be bothered. Something. So yeah. Anyway, apparently I
Well,
deserve
listen,
abuse.
we've got sorry if listeners found that uncomfortable, but I just had to get it all off my chest, to be
Mm,
honest.
hmm
Just get it off
hmm
there.
I'm glad that
Um,
I managed to provoke an abusive reaction on a social media channel that I'm not even on.
well, ghosts live forever,
That's
so
true. Yeah, yeah,
they're always there
you're right.
if you believe in ghosts, obviously. Um, we 412, as we said, episode 412. We're really at the dog days or in the dog days of the season now. What we got 10 to go?
I think it's
9 games?
9
Nine
now.
games?
Yeah, like and I guess we'll talk about it when we get there. But like I feel like you're
Yeah.
swinging from this is amazing to I want the season to be over from
Yeah,
day to day at the moment. So yeah.
I just felt, yeah. I mean, we'll talk about it in the recap, but yeah, just look, 1-1 draw with Stevenage. Let's get into it. But before we do, massive thanks as always to ZCZ Films. We're updating the kind of what we call the back end of the pod. There's a few things coming that I think I think you might quite like. A few little tweaks here and there to the overall production of what we're doing.
Yep.
So yeah, so look out for those. But thanks as always to ZCZ Films who are always with us in spirit and physically and the other thing
Well, they're
that
not
isn't.
with us physically. But yeah,
Yeah,
I've been mentioning the
yeah.
Patreon recently too.
No, you did.
Whenever
Yeah,
you're not
yeah.
out, yeah, whenever you're not here, I mention the Patreon. So do if you, I know a lot of people do Patreon, especially in the younger generation. I've got a ton of like YouTubers and things that I like on Patreon, and it's a really great platform, and we have stuff there as well.
Mm.
And so I don't think any of the tiers are particularly high. I think there's like a $1 tier or £1 or whatever. I could be wrong about that. But anyway, I'll try and make it worth your while over the next year or two as well, with a few little pieces of bonus content on there. So yeah, we do have a Patreon as well if you wanna tip the boys every now and again.
Yeah, don't know what we do with it, but yeah, why not? Buy a mic that works probably because we just spent 20 minutes trying to fix whatever this is.
It's
Yeah, anyway,
9:30 in the UK, listeners. It's well after when we would normally record, so that
yeah,
tells you everything you need to know about today. Anyway, let's get on to this game.
yeah, let's do it. We're gonna go for the recap right now. Right. Okay. Welcome back to episode 412 of the Tilehurst podcast. One all draw against Stevenage, who I think took most Reading fans by surprise. If I'm completely honest, they were pretty. They were right. I was going to say they were pretty good. I mean, look, they are where they are for a reason. But I have to say, and I was thinking about this today, pre-recording. Are they the best team I've seen us play at home? I think they're up there. I
Yeah.
really do. I think they. I don't think they should be where they are in sort of mid-table, but I don't know. I haven't followed them that much this season. I thought it was an all right game. I thought it was fairly even. I don't think there was much in it between both teams on the day. Ross, you were pretty impressed with Stevenage in general.
Yeah.
But what did we do right in the game? Let's focus on that first of all. How did we get the point, even though we were in a winning position,
Yeah,
basically?
right. Oh, that's a good question. I think that the set plays were good from Reading today. They kept trying. Oh, today. It's so long ago. Anyway, I think the set plays were good for Reading at the weekend. I think that that was somewhere that they were improving throughout the match. They do this thing where they like to go for the near post quite a lot, where they'll go to Bindon or they'll kind of have like a pack start towards the back and then move towards the front post. It's a pretty standard like set play routine, nothing crazy, but it's something we saw them try over and over again with Savage delivering to the near post. And I think it can wind people up sometimes because it looks like you're hitting the first man at a corner over and over again, where really what you're doing is you're trying to hit that ball into a place whereby just a little nick, off anyone, as we saw at the weekend, will put that into the back of the net. Obviously, Tyler Bindon was nearby to the goal that we scored from a set play this weekend. If it hit him, then maybe, but I think really, it's just him putting pressure on at that near post again.
He
Um,
celebrated like it was his.
he did, yeah, yeah. But I was, I was like 100% convinced when that happened as well. I was like, "There's no way that's hit him." I'm like, "That's definitely gone in off the guy, off the Stevenage play." But again, right, like you keep sending the ball into like the same place, and eventually, you're gonna panic the opposition. Maybe if they don't deal with it right every single time. We know how good Bindon can be in the air. If you're trying to
Mm.
make sure that you get to the ball ahead of him, you might make a mistake like that. It's League One, like there are players who are gonna do this kind of thing. So I thought Stevenage were good, like you say. I think that they were better than us, and maybe on another day that they could have taken 3 points away. I felt that this was a game very similar to the Bristol Rovers home game back in the fall, in that we were kind of
The
in it
what? You mean autumn?
in the autumn. Sorry.
Beat proper boy.
I was even there with you guys at that game, and I'm still,
You were true. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah,
and I
yeah,
still
yeah.
caught it the full. But where was I now? Completely lost the plot. Uh,
Bristol Rovers.
Bristol Rovers, yeah, very similar game, and the reason I say that is because like once the game state changed, the game changed. So once Reading went ahead, they just completely shut up shop and like didn't like it just really wasn't going for them afterwards. And so like I'm looking at the stats from the game, and they're so far ahead of us in terms of shots. So if you were
Mm.
just looking at that, Reading always have a shot deficit, so you would think they were way, way, way better than us. I don't think that was the case. I think it was a pretty even game for about 55, 60 minutes, and then Reading just ran out of gas or something. I'm not even sure. Yeah, there are definitely issues there in the second half.
I mean, you know, we've touched on this time and again, and a lot of the fans have really focused in on, you mentioned shot deficit, but that's been the case all the way through the season, not
Yep.
just now. But it feels like, ironically, since Sam Smith left, we haven't lost a game, right? But because he has left, the focus has really been on those front three, whoever they are. I wouldn't say rotation, but there's been a few sort of trial and error points.
Hmm. Yeah.
How kind of briefly, because it's a difficult one to answer in isolation, but how do you feel about the front three at the moment? Obviously started with Chem. Jaden and tall Kelvin. I'm going to call
Tall
him big.
Kelvin, thank
Yeah,
you.
tall Kelvin.
Yes.
Um, where are you at with those three at the moment?
Yeah, where am I at with those guys? I think that I certainly want Kelvin, tall Kelvin, sorry. Which he has to be tall Kelvin now because now we have Kelvin Abrafa
Everyone's
back in
back
play.
in. Yeah,
Yeah.
everyone's back in.
Makes life tough for ratings and I have to write Ehi Bachaman every single time. But yeah, no, where am I at with those three? I definitely think Wareham is the best option down the middle, just because I think that as strikers, we have this temptation to think that the first thing you want to get out of your striker is a goal, obviously, like every other game. And
Mm.
yes, we do want our strikers to score goals when they're near the goal. But strikers are they take like 5 or 6 touches in the box per game. So it's not like that's a state, that's like 20% of their touches in the entire game. So there's a whole lot of the game that happens outside of the box for a striker. And in my opinion, Wareham just kind of has the ability to shut up and get on with it a little bit better than Kelvin does. Kelvin seems to get a little bit sidetracked by refs' decisions and things like that go against him. And I don't doubt that he has more quality and he is a more possibly a player with like a higher eventual ceiling than Jaden Wareham. But the basics of striker play, of hold up play, have to be done. If we are going to occasionally have to kick over the top, and if you can't do that, you're just basically clearing the ball every time, right? So if it goes from Wareham, winning 4 out of 10 versus Kelvin, where winning 2 out of 10, I'm sorry, that's 80% of where the game is played for him. I'm gonna pick Wareham every time. And then real quickly on Chem, he has gone a little bit quiet
Yes. Yeah.
since Sam Smith's left for sure. I think that he's been quite streaky
Mm.
this season in general. I do think that he's probably the better option of any Reading player on the right wing, but yeah, he has been a little bit quiet going forward of late for sure.
I mean, that there has been so much focus on those front three, whoever they may be. Kamara's coming for a bit of stick. Not quite sure where Tall Kelvin seems to prefer playing
Hmm.
in that particular system. He didn't do too bad against Crawley the previous week. Got a goal kind of down the middle, but tired towards the end of the game. I think really, there are holes now all across the team. You look at centre back, Andy Yeardon came in, and you know he's just coming back from fitness, and to ask him to play against what were fairly aggressive, forward-thinking players in Stevenage's
Yeah,
front three or whatever.
yeah,
Looked
and a
like a waste
really,
of diamond type thing. It was hard for him. I thought he coped really, really well.
yeah.
What obviously Holzman's got a fractured eye socket and he came on towards the end of the game. Or is it cheekbone? One of the two. He's had quite a significant
He got
facial injury.
smashed in the face. Yeah, I'm not even
Yeah.
sure. I'm
Smashed
sorry.
up.
Smashed
Yeah.
up. Yeah, I hope you're all right, Louis.
Yeah, yeah. Godspeed.
Yeah.
What moving forward into the next game,
Hmm.
if Pete, I mean, obviously Stickland will be back because he would have served his ban. But beyond that, what other options have we got if these players aren't back fit? Do we just stick with Tyler Bind and Andy Yeardon for the foreseeable? Would you bring Stickland back in? Like, what would you do at this point?
I want to preface this by kind of saying that and you just pointed out here the front three, the kind of interesting thing that Stevenage were doing. I haven't seen that press before that they were doing this weekend. I thought it was quite interesting. They were
Mm.
very so obviously against Wrexham, we just had so much ability to move the ball forward because their game plan didn't account for one of our fullbacks. So we were able to suck him in with Lewis Wing and then push the ball out to Kelvin Abrafa. That game plan was not available to us against Stevenage. What I thought was really interesting is that there was like kind of light pressure on Abrafa and Garcia, but there was also like strikers hanging in between Garcia and Bindon on one side, and then Abrafa and Yiadom on the other side. So it's a really weird little pressing formation that kind of had some light pressure in some places and stopped Reading like making plays back into their own half if they needed to recycle or something like that. So all of that to say, Andy Yiadom facing a press that we hadn't really seen yet this season. I thought he did do pretty well. Definitely, coming back from You can tell he's coming back from an injury to a certain degree. And Andy Yiadom as a center back always makes me a little bit nervous when the ball goes up in the air for a set
Mm.
piece or something like that. His arms are a little bit wild at those. I know we've given away penalties before from him just dragging someone down. And you know what football's like now, like you get a drag and a small pull and you're down like right
Yeah.
away. I thought he did okay. I thought that he did better than the kind of mix of stuff that came in afterwards, which was a really kind of tricky final 30 minutes of the game. I thought Holzman and Rashisha together really struggled on that side. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a little concerning in terms of what comes next.
Well, what comes next is Peterborough at home. Week and a half now. Really, really thankful, as I'm sure everyone listening to this is for kind of the 2 weeks that we would have had off in between, the Stevenage game and then back home to the posh on the 29th. We'd like to think that there'll be bodies back through the door in terms of fitness. Not silence, obviously. Don't be
Don't be
bonkers.
daft.
But
Come on now.
yeah, don't be crazy. But getting those players back, giving them a little bit of a rest. I think Wareham's gone off to Cyprus or somewhere. It looked like his dad put on social media. So I'm sure they'll have little breaks here and there and rest recuperation and go from there. But it's looking increasingly very, very thin in that squad. And we always knew this would be the case. Years and years of underfunding and not being able to sign players will do that to a team and a
Right.
squad.
As it
But
will.
the facts are that we've not lost in 10 now. Whether or not those results were good results in inverted commas, whether they were bad results, whatever, we're still in a reasonably somehow healthy position in terms of the playoffs. Do you? And I guess this is the final question that we recap really. Do you still feel that we can get to the playoffs, given how we've been playing, given the fixtures that we've still got left, and given the squad depth?
I think the what you just said about the fixtures that we have left is really interesting. So I'm going to leave that for the preview because actually I kind of want to dive into that a little bit more. Do I think that we can make it? Yeah, I do. So we talked about that shot deficit a lot. That's actually tightening up a little bit at the moment. So we are starting to take a few more shots, which is good to see. I've been taking a look. Weirdly, it's the second half that's a real issue for us in terms of, like at that shot deficit at the moment. We're getting pretty much on a line now, in terms of XG generated in the first half. But the second half is where we struggle. So that kind of speaks to that, tiredness in the team. And like once you get to the 70th minute, grinding out the last 20 minutes, which, yeah, could suggest that the last 9 games is going to be really tricky. I think that it's been said in the TTE group chat, and I kind of agree with this, which is that if Mbenge comes back and if Elliot comes back, then yep, we'll definitely make the playoffs. And if they don't come back, then it's a maybe to a probably not, I would say. But I think that Reading could do with a little bit of a creative spark. They're very good at staying in games, but they and that if they made it to the playoffs, I think that the style that Reading play would make them a very tricky out for a lot of the other team, unless they're Stockport. We want Stockport nowhere near those playoffs if we're in them.
True. Yeah,
Yeah, they're our
absolutely
bogey
spot on.
team. Don't want anything to do with Stockport. But I do think the way that we play would actually make us quite a difficult team to knock out in the playoffs. And if we can bring in
Mm.
a player like Elliot, who will make just a little bit more of 2 to 3 chances a game, when advancing on the opposition box, I think that's a chance to get to, 2 goals. It's quite hard to score 2 goals against us. It doesn't happen very often. So yeah, I think that we're dealing with small margins, and returns from injuries would help a lot. Yeah, that's where I'm at. Where are you at with the playoffs?
No.
No?
I
Okay.
just, as I mean, I've just was looking at the remaining fixtures now. It is 9 games left. I think it's more about and I said this a few weeks ago. I think it's more about the other teams and what they do rather than what we do. I think we will get a reasonable return out of the games we've got. They're not the worst set of fixtures on paper that we could have. I just think the other teams around us are too strong. Other teams are hitting form at the right time. They've, pound for pound, got better players to be blunt, and they're probably a little bit more
See, that's the
able
interesting
to
thing. I don't think
call,
anyone's.
but
I don't,
they're not as tired as we are. And no
they're
point,
not
but
as tired. Yeah.
but like we're asking these players to play a lot of football now, and other players can interchange it. I mean, Wrexham are not a good example, but I'll use it now because why not? You look at their forward line in general, they can just rotate.
Yeah.
They've got sort of four players there that you'd go, well, get into any League One team, possibly even a Championship team. They can just pull them out as and when. We can't do that. We just don't have the the manpower to be able to do that. So yeah.
Speaking of them, real quick, because I went to the. So you missed chatting to me about going to the bar to
I know,
watch
I
the
was
game
gutted. It was the
last.
best
Yeah.
result of the season, to be
I
honest.
know, I had a great time. Like I made Reading fans of the whole lot. Can you guess the Wrexham player that my American friends recognized? Think Premier League era, Premier League 2010s, maybe a little bit before as well.
The Premier League 2010.
Kind of like 2010s era. Coached by Roberto Martinez at one point.
Oh, mate, you've lost me now. I
I've
was going to
lost
say
you.
blooming Paul Mullen because he's on all the adverts.
Oh, I see. Okay, James McLean was the one. They were like, "Oh
Ah,
my
okay.
word, it's him!" And I was like, "That is the most abused man in the British Isles. Let me tell you."
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, he's. Yeah, I get that.
he splits
Was it really
opinion.
2010? Crikey.
I could be off with that. I'm just thinking like when I think of James McLean, the first thing I mean, I think of the Sunderland years, and I also think of Wigan, basically. And maybe he wasn't
Yeah, that's what
the
I was. Yeah, because the thing is, when you said Martinez, I was thinking Swansea. I was like, I don't think any of those players play for Swansea.
that's another. We've been talking a lot about generational things
Yeah,
recently. Right now, that's a huge generational thing that you just went to.
Martinez, Swansea. Honestly,
Martinez
they were.
Swansea, yeah. Martinez Wigan for
They were
is Wigan guy through and like he won the FA Cup with. We're talking. This is
true.
a Reading podcast about Reading players.
I
I
like
just want to
Martinez though.
highlight.
I like Martinez.
Yeah, I like
I think he's
Martinez.
good.
I
I
don't
really like him.
like.
Nice guy as well.
Sorry, you were saying something, and
No, I think he's a nice guy.
I
Unlike you.
agree. Yeah, exactly. I just want to reiterate though, like one thing I just said there, just to kind of finish up, because like you were, and this could massively hurt us, given that it is the last 9 games of the season. I'm glad that they got a rest now, and Jaden Wareham's, doing Emporio Armani commercials wherever he is. Just want to reiterate that second half kind of stat that I was just bringing up there. Reading are actually kind of dialing the first half deficit in terms of shots and XG back to being pretty in line, like pretty much like for like.
Mm.
But the second half is still where they're struggling. I think they are struggling a little bit to see out games at the moment. So it's tough, isn't it? Like I think if Reading could just find a way to get themselves 2 goals consistently, they'll start picking up, some of these points that they've dropped. And it's just if you can kill a game in the first 30 minutes, and then, even if they have a good period and they get a goal back, you still get the win. Like I think that's kind of what's splitting us from the better sides in the playoffs right now is the ability to go out and get a second goal and kill the game off. Because I think we're fully in control of a lot of these games. Um, unless things get really off with the personnel in the second half. But even against Wrexham, we show we can fully control the game against a team with more resources than us. It's just can we score? And in that game, we got a slightly lucky penalty, and that started, that opened the floodgates for us. So yeah,
I don't want you to feel like I wasn't listening to what you just said because I was.
cool.
But how many years do you think Martinez spent managing Wigan?
Still a Reading podcast. How many years did Roberto Martinez spend managing Wigan?
Yeah,
7.
sure.
Yeah, 7.
Four.
4,
Yeah,
really?
I know. Honestly, it's blown my mind. He was at Swansea for 2 years.
Wow.
He was at Wigan for 4. He was at Everton for 3. I completely forgot he was at Everton. Belgium, he was there for 6. And now
Ah,
he's been at Portugal for coming up 2 years.
interesting. Okay.
I know it is. It's crazy. Anyway,
Huh.
enough of Roberto Martinez. Let's go to our mailbag. Right. Welcome back. We're not going to talk about Roberto Martinez. But again, that's another one.
You're back
We're
on it
doing.
now. Yeah, yeah.
the double names. Like it's not Martinez, is it? It's Roberto
Oh,
Martinez.
that's true. Yeah, you'd never call. I think that's a thing for managers in general, though. Like, you would never, like, if I just said Harry to you, you're not going to go, oh,
Mm.
he's Harry Redknapp, like right away, are you?
Yeah,
Like,
it's
if
true.
I
It's
say
true.
Steve to you, am I saying Coppell or Sidwell? Like, where are we going with this? So you're actually
Yeah.
right. Like, unless you're literally like a performative idiot like Mourinho, you don't really. Carlo Ancelotti sometimes gets Carlo, I feel like, and that's I'm gonna have a think about it, but yeah, that's a
I
really
mean,
good point.
the one at the moment that everyone knows is Ange, isn't it? You say Ange, you know
And
exactly who you're talking about.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, that's
who's
true.
completely lost the plot now. I said this a couple of weeks ago. He has gone off the deep end big time with that team. But anyway,
Yeah,
right, let's do some mailbag about Reading Football Club, which is what we're all here for.
yeah,
Andy Taylor, welcome back, Andy. Hope you're well. Thanks for the Dolan pint update. I've
nice.
not, do you know what? I've missed a couple of games recently. I feel really annoyed with myself doing that, but here we are. Um, if we can put a decent run together, no reason we can't make the playoffs. Andy, if only we'd had this question 5 minutes ago.
Yeah,
But we're
right.
clearly tired and probably a step too far. However, if we don't, many of this team might not be there next season. Did you
That's
see
a good point.
Mbenge's lap of honor as a goodbye or a thanks for the support? It's a good question.
Give me a little bit of context. Were you there? Sorry, did you just say you weren't even there this
No, I
weekend?
was there. Yeah, I was
Okay,
there. What
cool.
did I?
What
I
did
just
he
saw it.
do? Like, he just sort of
Well,
wandered
he was in
around?
1871 anyway,
Yeah, I
and
saw
then he
that.
sort of like went on this. Was it bizarre? I suppose if you're not playing, it's a bit bizarre. You
Yeah,
know,
he
it's a
loves
little
it
bit
though.
like John Terry full kit lifting the Champions League. But
Yeah,
I I just saw it as him thanking the fans. I mean, he probably had a bit of an emotional day. Like it's an intense, I say intense environment, but being on the other side of it, I'd imagine as a player and then being with the fans and getting
mm-hmm.
involved as a fan, is kind of like, well, do I thank everybody for their support because I'm still a player at this club, like a massive player for this club, but I didn't play. Like, I think it's too early to read into any kind of
Yeah,
goodbyes or anything. I agree with Andy in the fact that, and I said this a few weeks ago. I think if we go up, most of those players will sign on for another season or want to be involved in a project for another season.
yeah,
If we don't, it's very, very difficult for them to decide. If the takeover's done, they might turn around and go, "Do you know what? I want to work in an environment where everything's a bit more comfortable." Um, I
I'd like
think it's too
to.
late to tell with players at the moment. I really do.
I think I'd like to see. I mean, like, look, I still predicting we'll make the playoffs. Still predicting we'll get promoted. Like, I'm gonna die on this stupid hill that will make me look like an idiot at the end of the season. That's fine. Don't care.
Mm,
If we don't, I would like to see the club employ a lot of sort of like 1 year with an option contracts and things like
yeah,
that. Especially if
definitely.
we're coming in with, if we do get the ownership thing done. Obviously, there's stuff going on with the court cases related to Coag and all those kinds of things. But if we do get the takeover done, I would like to see, some offers to these players like Mbenge, that have proven themselves in this team, as well as just, as footballers, say, look, I understand that you could go elsewhere, but this team is clearly pretty good already. Now we can put
Mm,
some resources behind it, and there's some momentum behind the club. We'd like you to be a part of that. Here's a 1 year contract, and then we'll put an option on the end of it. And we mutually agree to do the option or whatever. I think there is going to be a level of like, we have to recognize, what some of these players have done for us during this.
yeah.
But also, I do think that we have been a good. I released a why you should watch Reading, or maybe I haven't released this one yet, about the academy, and why it's awesome. Like, we give youth a chance, and stuff like
Mm,
that at Reading. But it's not just youth. Like, Lewis Wing has had a chance to reinvigorate his career at Reading. Like, regardless of whether he could be elsewhere and doing other things. We have given him 2 fantastic years and a platform as the guy that we build our team around to really show what he can do. We've given Charlie Savage a platform to show what he can do finally after Sellers left, like we
yeah,
started playing
exactly.
him,
I,
and
I,
all these things.
I think. you're right. I think one thing any player coming in knows they're going to get minutes because of the squad
Yeah,
situation.
exactly.
Obviously, it flips the other way because we start signing more players, then they won't get those minutes because rotation will be a thing, which as a fan is like, yeah, that's what we want to be, right? We want to be a fully functioning club that's able to rotate players as and when.
There's
But as the cause once said, players only love you when you're playing. And actually, a lot of these players are getting a lot of minutes and a lot of game time, and they've had to kind of play up a level. Garcia, 16, 17, like
brilliant.
it just blows my mind that he's still basically a child playing in a men's team and actually having to do that week in, week out. And, in most cases, every 3 or 4 days.
And
So
making
it's
men look stupid, by the way, as
exactly,
well,
yeah,
which is great.
exactly.
I put on Blue Sky a little clip that I pulled from this weekend where
Hot
it goes,
dog.
yeah, I know, hot dog, hot dog. Is that a phrase in the UK? Sent him for a hot
Yeah,
dog?
setting for a hot dog. Yeah, for
Yeah, you
sure.
sent for a hot
Yeah.
dog, you broke his ankles. Those are the two I would use. But yeah, I love that phrase. But yeah, it's awesome. Go like look on my Blue Sky profile. It's Garcia. I noticed it at the time that he had like really like jinked the guy and gone. But if you like zoom in and watch it in slow-mo, you can see Garcia does like a little like kind of thing, and it's just great. I had to add some
He's
audio to that for the listeners as well as the YouTube watchers.
he's done really well, and a lot of those
Yeah,
players have. But coming back to Andy's point, I think it's too early to tell if we get sort of 4 games out of the season, we know we're not going to go up. I think the rumor mill will kick in early,
that's
but
true.
I would anticipate that we would have more news by then, 5 games down the line as to what's going on with the ownership. So we'll see what happens.
I think Mbengue
Andy,
loves it too, and like he probably just
yeah,
enjoyed
he
going
like he
around
likes the
having a good
club,
time.
and the club likes him. So he
Yeah,
doesn't need an excuse to be front and center of that, and why not?
yeah,
I think we need characters like that. I think you know, someone made the point that actually it's a good group of players that clearly
great
want to play
group.
for the club as well. So
The last thing on that, sorry, I know I said that again. I'm so sorry, but the Chem Campbell, we were just talking about, like whether players want to play here, and I think yes, they do because they get
mm,
minutes. Was there any rumors that Chem Campbell wouldn't and sign just immediate, like, yep, cool, like another half a season, let's
yeah,
go. Like,
true.
yep, I'm starting here, like whatever, let's go. Yep, cool. So yeah,
Um, Andy's got a second bite of the cherry with question number 2.
all right.
How quickly do players lose fitness? At this stage of the season,
Oh,
would it make a lot of difference if those uninjured players had 7 to 10 days off slash rest?
that is a really, really great question. Thank you for asking it because I love this topic. It's really interesting. Yeah, I think player fitness is really interesting. I think that there's basically kind of two things that you're looking at most of the time. So like obviously your muscle and ligament, damage or overuse and stuff like that. That's obviously going to be a big thing with footballers. The other kind of thing to think about is VO2 max and kind of like how I think this kind of gets aligned with game like match fitness quite a lot of the time where you're talking about, can they get through a whole match? If you haven't played a 90-minute match of football recently, just try it. Like it's not easy. I played 60 minutes in a row the other day, and that was a nightmare that took my body several days to recover from. So what these guys are doing to recover as quickly as they do already is really impressive. The reason I bring up the VO2 max thing as well is because if the players are taking 2 weeks off, well, sometimes players talk about how they don't like to stop training for more than a week or so because if they do, they'll start to lose, lung capacity. They'll start to, not be able to run quite as fast for as long. You get distance runners talking about this kind of thing with training too. I'll try and dig it up sometime this week. There's a very interesting guy over here in the United States. He plays for Detroit City, who are sort of like a lower league team. So the man's being paid like a salary for an office worker to basically play as a footballer, but spend his life as a footballer, which is quite cool. I think I'd do that too. It'd be fun. But he talks a lot in his videos. He does a lot of lifestyle videos about how, the fitness is a huge part of it and protecting your fitness over the whole thing is really interesting. So, look, I think that there are going to be some players who are going to benefit from this. In the, Harvey Nibbs, Lewis Wing, they are probably guys that have got a lot of muscle soreness and joint, stuff going on right now because, that you can see it in the explosiveness that isn't there sometimes on the field. But I think that some of the younger guys are probably doing doing all right. And it's a case of just making sure that they keep that match fitness at top level, that VO2 max over the next couple of weeks. But yeah, interesting. That's a really interesting question. I love stuff about recovery.
Two things. I wouldn't, if you've not played 90 minutes of football for a while slash ever, I wouldn't recommend going out and doing that tomorrow.
Would not.
Secondly, Ross didn't mean any offense by talking about office worker salaries. I'm sure there are perks to the job.
Sorry,
So,
yeah. I
yeah.
work in an office. I mean, you get paid my, measly salary, but you get to be a professional. Would you do that? Actually, that's a question I've been asking
I'd
a lot of
never
my
be a
friends.
professional football player
You
ever.
never
You can blame
ever.
me. No.
Oh, okay,
Never
interesting.
ever wanted to, not interested at all. Love the game,
Okay.
love watching, love talking about it, playing it. I mean, I was all right. Like I was okay. I never got to any
Yeah.
amazing level, and I enjoyed it, but I never ever wanted to do it as a job.
Okay.
Never, because
Interesting.
there's too many restrict. I like
There's a lot of
things too much,
restrictions. Yeah. And you basically
and
give up your life to do that.
exactly.
Yeah.
And whilst it's nice when people come up to me um, and talk about the pod. And I'm not saying that this happens like all the time, but when it does, it's nice to talk to people. But I couldn't imagine just trying to get round a popular supermarket and people going, "Can I have a photo? Can I have this? Can I have that?" Like, just get out of my face, mate.
This out.
Obviously, now it's great. It's great to have people going, like the pod, and Ross is a lot better than you, kind of stuff. But if that was my life all the time and I couldn't leave the house without people sticking a phone in my face, I'd literally clock someone. So
That's
that's why I
what,
don't
yeah.
want to be a
That's what I was going to
professional.
say. Even at this level, this is USL 1. This is really low, pretty low level. I was training on one of the turfs this weekend, and one of the players from the team, like the players are now in town, and one of the players from the team was doing like one-on-one coaching with, some of the like the local youth kids and stuff. And it's funny, like even like that level, I'm like, oh look, he's there. Like he didn't have to get dressed up in all of his, Hearts of Pine gear as well, though. So I think he was
He
feeling
wanted
it.
the
He
attention.
wanted the attention. Yeah, for
He
sure.
wanted all the smoke. That's what he wanted.
Same week that we're playing our first ever competitive game, and he put on all
Yeah.
of
Oh, I
his
just
gear
happened to put the
and he went
tracksuit
down to the
on.
busiest football turf in town. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
He knew what he was doing.
He knew.
But yeah, it's a good question about fitness, really. It's a good one. Um, right, what we're doing now.
You got the email from
Um,
Alex. Alex has got another
I
good
have,
email.
yeah.
Yeah. Should we do that one?
Tom Sheeran, the rest of the
Okay.
season will be exciting if we get a new owner, bit like a new manager bounce. The only games we played well in recently were Birmingham, Wrexham, and perhaps Wigan away. Genuinely excited to see how these youngsters get on next season. Is Mbenge a cult hero?
Yes, 100%. As soon as I
Yeah.
saw him in the stands on Saturday, I was like, oh, yeah, what a man. He's hilarious. And he was loving it. I felt a bit bad for him that the first 20 minutes of that game were pretty poor and Reading weren't really giving, the crowd anything to shout about because they showed footage of Mbenge about 10 minutes before kickoff and the man is already just losing it, like putting in so much effort, like trying to G up all the people around him. So like, yeah, it was quite funny. Yeah, definitely cult hero.
Yeah, 100%. Talking of 1871, they're in a bit of a state of flux at the moment in terms of I think they had a meeting with the club today, potentially. Obviously,
Mm.
I've not seen any news yet, and nor would we, but I think that they're kind of looking at what they can do to move it on now. Martin asks, was there a fire drill in Club 1871 on Saturday? Seems when we win, they stay behind and lap up the celebrations in front of them, but draw or lose and they're gone. I think there was a handful left by the time the players got to that stand. It's a difficult one with 1871, isn't it? Because it's sort of taken, a life of its own, really, in recent times.
Yeah.
I think there is a perception that probably isn't hugely accurate about what that particular group, and it is a group, set up by Reading fans, kind of stand for and what they wanted it to be. I think from my point of view, I sit in a section of the ground where you get thrown out for sneezing. So it's one of those where, like, a bit of noise I think is a real positive thing
Yeah,
in
I
terms
agree.
of that. And I think they've done a really, really good job.
I
I
agree.
do think that they probably need to move in a slightly different direction now and things need to evolve a little bit. Now, whether or not
Mm.
that's that's new people coming into the group with new ideas. Whether or not they relook at the location, I don't know. I'm not sure, but I think they've done an incredibly difficult job to kind of create something out of nothing.
Yeah.
In the situation the club's been in, and to be honest, we talked about attendances a couple of weeks ago, and then I stopped going to games for a couple of weeks because I couldn't get there, the midweek ones particularly. But nothing will change until the ownership changes.
Yeah, I
It's
don't think
simple.
it's anything to do with them or anything. Like it is the thing. Like I've been insulated from a lot of it because I'm not on X and I don't see that kind of stuff. But the thing about that, the first thing I thought was, well, but before it was Club 1871, it was Y23 and like that sort of area. So like there's always every stadium has an area where the fans that want to sing, that want to be a bit obnoxious like me, go and they do that kind of thing. There's always been that kind of thing. I really like Club, 1871. I really, really loved it when it started. I see kind of like there is that need to, make sure that you're constantly bringing in new people. Because, your supporters group, like part of the thing about a club is that you're always handing it down to the next generation. And it should be something that you can enjoy with people in your family of all ages and things like that. I think there's an argument to be made that maybe you could try and like spread that around the ground a little bit more. But I quite like where they are with regards to being like right next to the away fans. I know that it creates some scenes that are a little bit silly sometimes, and people get a little bit overexcited and do things they probably shouldn't from time to time because of that. But you gotta wonder if that was part of the plan when they put 1871 together in the first place, because that's part of what football is in England, is
Mm.
the back and forth that's going on off the pitch as well as the back and forth on the pitch. It is the debate between the fans that's going on in real time while your teams are playing. Like if your team scores, there are some people who go to football games who aren't fully aware there's a football game going on. I'm sure, like they're there for the community and the like spirit of being in that big crowd of people and
The
seeing
Bants.
the bands. Yeah, like these are your mate. I bet you there are people in Club 1871 that couldn't give a toss about football, or they're Man U fans or whatever, but their mates go and it's a good time.
Man U fans.
Yeah,
God.
well, there aren't Man U fans, but yeah. Anyway,
Yeah,
so
I know what you mean. I know what you mean. Yeah,
yeah,
no
I,
interest
I
in
I think they've
it
done
at
a
all.
great job. They, as somebody who comes from a family where I'm the only Reading fan as well, they are one of the few Reading organizations that I have had non-Reading fans like that they've sit up and took notice. Like, hey, they're actually loud. Like I had lots of jokes from my Southampton supporting family about how quiet Reading games could be, and even
Mm.
they have admitted those guys make noise. So yeah, I look a 1-1 draw with Stevenage, whereby we were clinging on for a good 20 minutes, and our players were headbutting each other before they went for the ball. Like, yeah, I'm not surprised. Like a lot of people were gone by the end of it. Yeah, that was
It's
more
it's difficult.
full-throated defense than I thought it was going to be. So you're
Yeah,
welcome, Club
it is
1871.
it is difficult. Like at the end of the game and stuff. Like it's if you travel by car, and I'm not trying to be that person, but it is so difficult to get out of that area
Mm,
if you parked in and around the stadium at the top. So, there are very few people at the end of each game clapping, and that's just the reality of the situation.
yeah, yeah,
People have got to do stuff, they've got to get away, whatever. So, I think long gone are the days where we can sit there and say, well, people should stay till the end. I mean, I didn't on Saturday. I had to get to the hotel to watch Wales lose, which I'm still not over. But it's one of those really, and it didn't help that the flipping refs were spending about 3 hours changing their
Oh God,
underwear.
yeah. That's actually a
It's
really
like,
good
what? You just put
point.
a shirt on, mate. Just put it on.
That took forever, didn't it? The
Just wear a
refing,
bin sack. No one cares. Do you know what I mean? As long
God,
as it's black, it doesn't matter.
they weren't on anybody's time but their own, were they? The refing team. This entire
No.
week, like they weren't even speeding up the other team or us at any point.
No.
Like they were just letting as much time as needed to be gone. And then like they gave back what, a quarter of it, maybe? Like I
Yeah.
would be annoyed if I was a fan.
Honestly, it was
We're
exhausting watching
been
him. It
in
really was. Um, this one kicked off a little bit. So Loyal Royal
oh,
says,
that's
well,
hard.
there's always a chance of playoffs. 10 games left and 2 points behind. If others get 1.5 per game, we need 18 points, 4 wins and 6 draws, plus a game in hand on some. Let's not put pressure on the lads. Just go out and enjoy the run in. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I don't think anyone's really. Well, I don't know.
I think the
It doesn't
team are
feel like
going
there's
for it.
pressure on the team.
I think the
Yeah,
team are
I think
going
they're putting
for it.
pressure on themselves. but I don't see fans. I mean, I thought Crawley was a must win if we were going to be serious about the playoffs. Like that's a game that I felt we had to win. Had we won that, I'd be like, yeah, do you know what? We're kind of closer than I think we are, but we didn't. We didn't beat Stevenage. I just don't think we've got enough to sneak in there, and that is largely down, as I said earlier, to the other teams around. But there was lots of other comments linked to that in terms of people agreeing or disagreeing in a very respectful way, I have to say. Um,
That's good.
Look, playoffs would be fantastic. It would be the real icing on a very difficult and dense cake this season if we got playoffs.
Yeah.
But then that's where the pressure comes because you think, well, you're pretty close to Wembley. You're 2 games away from it. Go and get it. And then you get to Wembley, and we've all been there as Reading fans, so it's it's tricky.
I almost feel like
Um,
it's better that we're chasing at this stage, by the way, rather
yeah,
than trying
I
to
think you're right.
hold things off. Like
Cling
there
on.
was in
Yeah.
that Pauno season, I feel like we were in the playoffs for so long, and then we dropped out not that long before the end, and we just couldn't get it back after that. Like it wasn't. So I think that it's harder to like hold people off in your rear view mirrors, and then like if you do fall out, turn it on again. Whereas right now, what we're trying to do is look, we've got a goal, we're trying to chase. And I mean, like, I like that thing laid out and that, oh, we need this many points. Like, I don't think that we'll get, so we got 17 now. We need 17
Yeah.
more points based on what he was saying before. Um, yeah, I mean, like, I haven't seen in this time that we've been futzing around, and it's weird because we've been unbeaten 10 games, but it doesn't necessarily feel like that.
Feel like that. Yeah.
Um, like no other team has massively kicked on and kicked away from us. Like a few teams have like kicked on by themselves for like a few weeks, but it's generally like the just general sixth place just keeps going
Mm.
like 2 points away, 2 points away, like the whole time basically. So like we're still sitting there chasing and no one's massively speeding off. Like Bolton have slowed down. I guess this is the preview now as well as the mailbag because we don't have a game to preview. It's the international break. Um,
There's a couple more actually. So Valdemar, our is it benefactor, sponsor,
Good buddy.
hero? Yeah, good
Hero, that's a
buddy.
better one. Yeah, hero. There you go.
Um, who's the best player you ever saw playing for Reading? Michael Elise has to be in a mix, and Gylfi. I don't know. We're allowed to talk about Gylfi, are we? We've had this so
Where
many
he's
times.
playing again, we can at least bring him up, and
But for me, it was Glenn Little. No speed, no physique, just a twisty ability to get in the cross every
mm,
single time. The best player. Listen, I have to say Gylfi. I think he was one of the best players I've seen play for Reading.
it's Michael Elise. There's no yeah, that QPR goal lives rent free in my head. I love telling people when we're out. Like there was actually Bayern Munich were on at the bar when Reading were playing Wrexham a couple of weeks ago, and I saw Elise, and
Oh, okay.
I was like, "Can I move him from that television to that
To the other one,
television?"
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Like
It's surreal. It is surreal
it's
when
so
when
surreal.
when you think about what he's doing now.
It's
It's
so
it's really odd.
it's
Really
really
odd.
weird watching him go up to Harry Kane and have like a conversation, and they're both like, like going, what a player. I just think he's just, I know, like, he was an interesting character and all those kinds of things, but
Mm.
just, I,
We could do
ridiculous.
a pod on that separately. That might be another good one to do in the in the off season,
Mm.
in the pre-season, who's the best player you ever saw play for Reading and to get a few of us on there. That would be a really good one to do actually.
I think
We did Cole 11, didn't we? We did
we
like best
did.
11,
Yeah, it
but
was cold. You're
focusing on
right.
one player I think could be quite an interesting one.
Do you
So
know what I think we should do with that? It shouldn't be, we should make it Select Car Leasing Stadium themed, not necessarily Reading themed, because like we have Charlie Savage because, Robbie Savage liked it when he was on our pitch in his pants on his last game of the season, right?
true,
So we should talk
true,
about who's the best ever player to play at the Select Car Leasing Stadium. I think
true.
that's an interest because I feel like we've talked, Elise, Gilfie, we talked, and other player, we talked about these players before, right? But I don't know how much we remember when Cristiano Ronaldo played at the Medeski.
Well,
Like,
I mean,
remember when these other
the
things
honest answer
happened?
to that is Thierry Henry. I mean,
Yeah, there you go.
I don't think I've ever clapped an opposition player off the pitch. Unreal that day.
Yeah,
He didn't even break sweat. He was just, well, incredible player.
yeah, and
Incredible player.
Marouane Chamakh. So lots of great
They were
players.
good teams though. Those Arsenal sides were really, yeah, they were good. They
Yeah,
had some good players. Arshavin, like, Cazorla, all these
yeah,
players.
fun
Anyway,
stuff.
Tom Hill, plans for the international break. Shut up, Tom.
I don't
coming up
know.
with this next one. Is it back to knitting for Ben? I wasn't knitting. It's impossible to knit.
What?
Anyone who knits is a witch.
How is it impossible to knit? That doesn't make any sense.
It's just like massive like
Massive.
chopsticks
Yeah,
through wool.
that's a good point.
I don't know what I'm going to do. So what am I going to do in the international break time? Watch Wales play
Yeah,
football, rugby. Never watching them play rugby again.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
I need a new tactics video, so that's what I'll be doing during the
that's what you'll be
international
doing.
break.
Yeah,
And I need, actually, that's a good point, listeners. If you want to suggest things, I don't know if Sim did in the end put things up on
he
what
did. Yeah,
he
he did.
did. He did ask. Okay, I'll have to go take a look at that. But yeah, if you have anything you're interested in, I'm kind of like umming and ahhing about various tactical subjects right now. There's a lot that's kind of interesting to me. But I
Mm,
kind of want to, I don't know, I want to do what
have a little
people
look.
actually want to see, you know? So yeah, I'll have a little look see. But if you have anything else, you can get me on Blue Sky, all the usual places.
Yeah. Um, I thought about counting up all the games I've been to, the Reading games I've been to over the years.
Oh God, you'd be here for,
Maybe I'll just do that for the summer because they're all the programs in the shed and all my lists are in the same box. So
yeah,
maybe I'll do that over the summer. I'd like to know how many games I've seen.
that would be
Like,
good. Yeah. Yeah, I'd like to know like you know how many per calendar year and all that kind of stuff as well. So that could
yeah,
be fun. Yeah, that's an
I
interesting.
must be approaching 1,000. I think
Oh
must
yeah.
be.
Yeah, I mean like yeah, I would think so. The 50 odd games a no, 25 odd games a season because you don't go to away games. So yeah.
Would that work? So that would be
25 odd a season. You've
possible.
been a fan for
It's
what?
possible.
3 decades? So you've been to probably
Yeah.
30 years worth of games. Let's give you
No,
30.
maybe I'm not. I'm trying to think. The last time I did it was.
I think you would be up and over 700. So let's give you that. That's a
Yeah.
big number. And if anyone else thinks that they know, real listener input on this one. But if anyone else thinks they know how many games they went to and they went to more than Ben, so they can stitch him up before he hops into his
There'll be
shed.
people out there that have been. I mean, Sim's probably pretty close to me because
He's
he
been
just
to
goes
a
all the
thousand in the
time.
last week.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. He's thought about going to 1,000 the last week. Anyway,
Yeah, yeah.
I think that's it for the mailbag. There was. Do you want to do the email that we got
Yeah,
from
let's do the email.
Alex?
Good
All
one.
right, let's find that. Let me just.
Um, yeah. Where have we put that?
Right, Alex. 2 weeks off now to get a bit of rest and tidy up the treatment room. I love the idea of the treatment rooms being like plasters everywhere and like
Right.
Vapor rub just like splashed across the walls. Like tidy this up.
Yeah, right,
Uh,
right, yeah.
are we a team in need of a rest, or are we a team in need of ideas in terms of how we approach games to get more wins or draws?
I think that they've
Good one.
done some stuff that has kind of changed how they approach games to a degree, and I think you can see things changing in the like I was saying earlier with the kind of like XG and shots being different in different halves now. And by the way, when I say that like the deficit is getting like smaller on like in the first half, I should clarify that I mean Reading are now managing to stop the other team from shooting even more. Not Reading are managing to shoot more. They're just stopping the other team more now as well. So exciting stuff again. Yeah.
I,
Go ahead.
again, I think that depends. I think at the moment we're a team that desperately needs a rest.
Mm. And
Um,
we're getting it.
I think that there's such a thing as momentum and confidence and all the rest of it. But when you look at the performance that we put in and the energy levels and the commitment and everything else that we did against Wrexham, and then everything on Saturday just seemed a bit flat.
Mm.
Like we're not. I don't feel kind of anecdotally that we're a team that really thrives on that kind of momentum in terms of. I know people go shut up, Ben. We're 10 unbeaten, but as I've said before already today, it doesn't tell the full picture of where we are as a football team.
Yeah. It's
I
so
don't know.
tough
I think
though.
it's a
Like
tricky one to answer. It's a great question. It's a
I'm
great question.
looking at I hate this. I'm so sorry, Reading fans, but like I've been seeing similarities between our season this year and Oxford's season last year.
Mm.
And kind of they didn't score like a ton of goals. Most of their games they were they'd score two or one goal. And you get a couple of 5-0s in there, but nothing too crazy. And then I'm just now looking the last 10 games of the season, they were able to win six of those. So again, we're talking about, hey, 6 wins gives us 18 points, which is what the listener there was saying would be enough to tip us up and over the thing. They were kind of having like a sort of season for a while. Looking at February, and very meh kind of February, but then really kicked on right around this time last year. We have the next 3 games are against Peterborough, Blackpool, and Wickham. Those are tough games, don't get me wrong. But then after that, we come up against Shrewsbury, Northampton, Lincoln, Mansfield, and Bristol. And it just does feel to me if we can stay in that sort of like only 2 points out of the playoffs thing, with, let's say we get 6 points or 4 points out of Peterborough, Blackpool, and Wickham, and we're still, 2 or 3 points outside. I like us to take a spot in the top six during that run of 5 games. So Shrewsbury, Northampton, Lincoln, Mansfield, Bristol, that seems like an opportunity for a decent run for me. And that would
I
be what
think
we would need to do.
yeah, I think it's more about clubs that would pull out of it or
Yeah.
fall out of it. I mean,
Yeah.
Huddersfield, look, you wouldn't. It's because like, oh,
That's why he
who
thinks
said
of
that?
Huddersfield.
Wouldn't you?
He
I
loves
know,
watching
yeah, exactly.
Huddersfield play.
Boring. They just changed manager,
Yeah.
rightly or wrongly, no idea, don't know, but that's what they've done. Bolton are there or thereabouts. I think it's going to be too much for Leyton Orient really to kind of close that gap. They're on what are they on? There's
They
kind of
had
a
a bad
5 point
run.
gap.
Yeah, if
Yeah.
they
So
basically followed up their good run by just completely throwing it all in the toilet.
it is possible. Huddersfield are the one that I think everyone has got their sights on because they're kind of free fall, but then they haven't scored a goal at home this calendar year.
Yeah. Do you know the one where I
Unless
was
that changed over the weekend. I don't know what they did over the weekend, actually.
do you know the one where I was almost thinking, are the wheels falling off here a little bit? But
Oh,
then
they
they did
they
lose.
did. They scored five.
Who
They
did?
scored
Huddersfield?
5 on Saturday against Crawley.
They did,
What an
yeah.
idiot.
Yeah, against a
So
team
yeah,
that
they
we
haven't.
couldn't
But
beat.
up until that point, they
Yeah.
haven't.
A team that
So
we couldn't beat, remember, that they went and just
exactly.
smashed 5-0. Yeah, that
Yeah.
I do see the
There's
difference
levels,
though,
isn't
Worry.
there? There's levels.
Yes, there are.
Um,
I thought Wrexham had been starting to kind of slow a little bit. But what's actually kind of happened is that both Wickham and Wrexham have just kind of been playing more at the pace of the playoff teams than the pace of, Birmingham in the last little bit, basically. So yeah, but not much longer now until they're going to be not able to hit our 106 record either. So keep the faith there.
that's true. Should we just do like a rough preview, but just talk about the playoffs?
I think that's what we're doing. We're kind of
Oh,
doing it
cool.
right
We're
now.
doing
Yeah.
it now, right?
Yeah.
Fine. So we'll just go straight into it. So
Yeah,
this
let's
is
go
now the
into it.
preview.
This is now the preview.
We'll do a proper preview next week for the visit of Peterborough on the 29th of March.
Yep.
But for now, yeah, what do you think? What are
I
we
think
saying?
Look, I've been saying we'll make it all season. I still think that we'll make it. And like I said, I think that it's good that we're on the outside looking in right now because I think that it
Mm.
presents a clear goal for the players, every single day to work towards. I think that the players are thinking about it. I think they know. It's a little bit of a shame that I don't think there's anybody left from that Paunovic playoff team, that has that sort of that fire in them from not wanting to miss out again. But whatever, it's professional football. I'm sure a lot of them have had things they've missed out on before. Here, like I said, with those 5 games in the middle, if we stay in touch for the next 3 games, which are tricky, then I think that gives us an opportunity to put together a run where we pick up more than 10 points in 4 or 5 games, and that could be enough to get us up in there. I don't think we're going to finish any higher than fifth. I should make that very clear right now. I don't think that this team can overhaul, enough teams basically above them, but I don't think that everyone up in that spot is as secure as they look right now.
Mm.
And so, yeah, I think that Reading have a really good chance. I think somebody needs to start a scoring run. That would be a huge thing that would help Reading. I mean, the best possible thing for Jaden Wareham and for Reading would be that he goes on a scoring run between now and the end of the season. Reading benefit from that, and he benefits from that. Yeah, that's kind of my hope. My that's where my heart's at. It's that this amount of time in the team for Wareham will help him get to back to scoring ways, and yeah, we'll stay in touch, and then we'll kick on in those next 5 games.
I mean, run down of fixtures. So we're back to life. 29th of March at home against Peterborough. And then we go to Blackpool on Tuesday, the 1st of April.
Yeah, and that's a
Wickham at
tough one.
home on the 5th. So I mean the Wickham at home will be an interesting thing altogether.
Yep.
Shrewsbury on that Tuesday. So we go to Shrewsbury on the 8th of April. Then we're at Northampton on my 40th birthday, by the way, on the 12th of April.
Oh, very nice
I was
too.
I was going to go, but I thought, do I want to spend my 40th birthday in Northampton? Probably not. Um,
Definitely not.
and then Friday the 18th of April, which is my dad's birthday. He's not 40, he's a lot older than that.
It'd be
We,
weird if
we
he
have
was, to be fair.
yeah, that is a bizarre thing to say. We're twins, but he's also my dad, like weird. We play Lincoln on his birthday at the Select Car Leasing, and then that's the Easter weekend. So the Monday, the 21st of April, we are up in Mansfield. Bristol Rovers the following Saturday away, and then the final game of the season, which is not a bad one to finish on, is Barnsley at home. And you all know that realistically it's going to come down to us trying to get something out of that game to get in the playoffs. So we might as well be at home to do that. So
Right.
they're not the worst fixtures that we could be dealt with. You know, we've said time and
Not
again
at
how
all.
the flip of the fixture list has been more kind of loaded towards the better teams. The first part of the season, and certainly at the back end of 2024. And now we're kind of in this situation where we should be playing some of the lighter teams, but we all know that football never works out like that. So
And also,
on paper, they're pretty good.
we've just gone on a run too, whereby beat Wrexham, tied with Stevenage, tied with Exeter, and all these kinds of teams. We can't beat the rubbish teams. We can only beat the good teams, unfortunately. So yeah,
Exactly, exactly. I mean, look, it is doable. It is
yeah.
doable, but it's not easy. Um, I still think Bolton have got a huge say in the playoff picture.
Mhm.
I think it'll be interesting to see if Charlton can stay in there as well. They've obviously been doing quite well recently and have kind of shot up the table. But yeah, I think you're right. I think there's a couple of clubs there that are getting a little bit twitchy. Um,
I think how much this rest affects us could be huge, right? Because we've just been talking, the kind of what strikes me is that we've been talking about, which of the players are tired and things like that and all that kind of stuff. But let's say wing or which of the players have room to improve right now. Like we just said, Chem's been a bit quiet recently. We've talked about wing before. We talked about Nibs not always being at his best, Kelvin being better on the left and things like that. All of these players have room to grow that they could still achieve this season, in my opinion. So I think that we have managed to get here and over the last 2 or 3 months kind of maintain this position, and show that we deserve to be up here. And now it's going to be about, a little bit of a rest. Can those players actually reach those slightly higher levels? And I think they can. Personally, I think if Lewis Wing comes back and decides that he's got the most, he's just got thunder in his boots for the last 9 games of the season, then watch out, rest of the league, because we have the best player in the league. Like sometimes we're just going to win games because of that. So yeah.
We'll see. We'll see. There will be a lot more to come over the coming weeks about the playoff picture, as always. We also know that Friday for this football club is a very, very big deal. We're not going to say any more than that because we have to be careful, obviously. But Friday could potentially be quite an important day for this football club. So, keep your eyes on the news and social media channels, everything else about what potentially may or may not happen there. The reality is that we are back next week. We're going to do a bit of a women's rundown with Abby.
Yep.
We're going to talk about kind of the rest of the season. We're going to talk a little bit more about Peterborough in terms of the preview there. Have a little catch up on where our players have been over the international break as well.
Yep.
And Ross is currently showing a bottle
No, I'm
that
just
he's
showing you my
received.
Tonki United badge, but I'm excited. That wasn't really what I was doing. I was holding my water bottle. I'm
Oh, I thought
excited.
you were trying to flog it or something.
No, I wasn't trying to flog my water bottle. It is my club badge, but anyway. I'm excited about the chat with Abby next week. That'll be good. And if you're looking for an update on the women's team before then, or just some interesting content, Peter did an interview, I believe, with Pedro Bruno, very
Good.
recently. So, by the way, good on you, Peter. That's a hat trick for the Tilehurst end with managers
It
this
is.
season. That gives us Sellers, Hunt, and Bruno, all in one season. So thank you, Reading. And yeah, this hats off to you, Peter. So yeah, go read
He,
his
he,
interview.
he's done a very good job this season for us. Very, very good job.
Great
So,
job.
very grateful to him and all of our contributors, and of course, all of you listeners joined us for episode 412. Um, in a kind of a weird state of flux in terms of kind of the start of the international break and kind of us reviewing a game that was sort of 4 days ago. But here we are. We've done it. You've done it with us as well. Have a really good rest of the week. We'll be back. At some point next week. It'll either be Monday or Wednesday. We will keep you posted on that. Have a really, really good rest of your week. Look after yourselves and come on, you are.